Castles look powerful, majestic, even romantic. But step inside those walls, and the reality begins to shift. Medieval castles were not designed for comfort. They were built for defense. Every stone, every narrow window, every spiraling staircase served a strategic purpose. Warmth, privacy, hygiene, and convenience were secondary concerns, if they were considered at all. The walls were thick, but they trapped cold as efficiently as they blocked arrows. In winter, damp air crept through stone corridors and settled into bones. Fires burned constantly, yet smoke lingered. Drafts slipped through arrow slits and under heavy doors. Glass windows were rare, and light was limited. Even in daytime, many rooms remained dim. Furniture was sparse. Floors were often covered in rushes rather than carpets. Beds were simple wooden frames with straw-filled mattresses. Privacy barely existed. Servants, guards, family members, and guests shared space within echoing chambers. Sanitation was primitive. Waste disposal systems were basic at best. Water had to be carried. Bathing was infrequent. Smells accumulated in enclosed halls that were difficult to ventilate. Even the grandest castles were noisy. Metal clanged, animals moved within courtyards, voices echoed across stone. Life inside those fortified walls was constant, busy, and far less elegant than modern imagination suggests. To live in a medieval castle meant enduring cold, dampness, smoke, limited light, and the ever-present awareness that the building itself was first and foremost a military structure. Behind the image of romance and grandeur lies a harsher truth. This is the story of what daily life. From a distance, a medieval castle appears serene. Its towers rise above the surrounding countryside with a kind of patient authority. Stone walls catch the light at dawn and glow faintly at dusk. Flags drift in the wind, slow and dignified. From afar, the structure seems permanent, secure, almost tranquil. Yet as you draw closer, the illusion begins to shift. The ground around a castle is rarely soft meadow. It is often churned by hooves, cartwheels, and the repeated tread of boots. In many regions, a ditch or moat surrounds the outer wall. In wet climates, this moat may hold stagnant water, thick with algae and debris. In drier lands, it may be little more than a defensive trench collecting rain and refuse. The scent near such barriers is not romantic. It carries dampness, mud, and decay. The outer gatehouse stands as the threshold between imagined grandeur and daily reality. Passing beneath its heavy arch, you enter a world built not for comfort, but for endurance. Castles were defensive machines before they were homes. The earliest stone fortresses of the High Middle Ages evolved from timber strongholds, designed primarily to withstand siege. By the 13th and 14th centuries, castle architecture had grown more complex, multiple curtain walls, towers placed for flanking fire, arrow slits cut narrowly into thick masonry. Every element served protection first. Livability came later, and often reluctantly. Inside the walls lies the courtyard. Instead of smooth paving, you find uneven ground layered with packed earth, straw, scattered refuse, and sometimes cobbles that shift beneath your step. Animals share this space, horses in stables along one side, chickens wandering freely, perhaps a pig rooting near a pile of scraps. The air is filled with a mixture of smoke, manure, damp stone, and cooking fires. The castle keep, the central tower that dominates the skyline, is the symbolic heart of the stronghold. Its walls are immensely thick, often several meters deep. This thickness ensures strength, but it also creates an interior that resists warmth and light alike. Step inside the keep, and the first sensation is coolness, even in summer. Stone absorbs heat slowly and releases it reluctantly. In winter, it never truly warms. Fires burn in large hearths, yet their influence reaches only a short distance. The upper reaches of the chamber remain chilled. Drafts move along the floor like invisible currents. Windows are narrow openings, more concerned with defense than illumination. Glass, where present, is rare and expensive. More often, shutters of wood are used, opened by day and closed at night. Light entering through these apertures falls in sharp beams, leaving corners dim. The Great Hall, often the largest interior space, serves multiple purposes. It is a place for meals, gatherings, and administrative affairs. High ceilings allow smoke from the central hearth to rise, but not all of it escapes efficiently. The scent of soot lingers in fabric and hair. Tapestries may hang along walls, not merely for decoration, but to soften drafts and reduce the echo of sound. Even so, warmth remains uneven. Seating is limited. Long wooden tables and benches are functional rather than luxurious. Cushions, when available, are reserved for high-ranking individuals. The floor may be strewn with rushes to absorb spills and moisture, yet these rushes are not replaced as frequently as one might imagine. Over time, they gather crumbs, grease, and other remnants of daily life. Above the hall are chambers connected by narrow staircases spiraling within towers. These stairs are steep and uneven, designed more to hinder attackers than to ease ascent. Carrying water or supplies up such steps requires steady footing and patience. Private rooms for the lord and lady of the castle are modest by modern expectations. A bed with curtains offers some privacy and insulation from drafts. The mattress is often stuffed with straw or feathers, depending on wealth. Sheets may be linen, blankets wool. In colder months, several layers are required, yet even then, breath may condense in the air. Hygiene presents another challenge. Castles incorporate garderobes, small latrine chambers projecting from outer walls. Waste drops into a shaft below, sometimes into a moat or pit. While practical for its time, this arrangement does little to prevent odor. In warm weather, the scent drifts upward. During sieges, when waste accumulates and disposal becomes difficult, conditions deteriorate rapidly. Water must be drawn from wells within the castle walls or carried from nearby sources. A deep well in the courtyard ensures survival during siege, but hauling water up from its depths is laborious. Every bucket lifted represents effort. Bathing is infrequent. Large wooden tubs can be brought into chambers and filled with heated water, yet this requires coordination, firewood, labor, time. For most inhabitants beyond the noble family, washing consists of basins and cloths rather than immersion. Sound travels unpredictably through stone corridors. Footsteps echo. Doors creak. Wind slips through arrow slits and whistles faintly along passageways. At night, the castle never becomes entirely silent. Guards move along walls. Horses shift in their stalls. The wind tests shutters and rattles iron fittings. The romantic image of torchlit corridors glowing warmly is misleading. Torches produce smoke and soot. Candles, made from tallow or beeswax, provide steadier light but are costly. Illumination is therefore limited. Many activities cease after sunset. During winter, discomfort intensifies. Stone walls radiate cold inward. Fires consume vast quantities of wood, yet still fail to banish chill from every corner. Frost may form along the interior edges of poorly sealed windows. Fingers stiffen. Ink thickens in writing rooms. Metal objects bite at bare skin. In summer, the problem reverses. Thick walls can preserve coolness, but crowded interiors become stifling. Kitchens generate intense heat. Flies gather near food preparation areas. Odors intensify. Heavy clothing worn for status or protection becomes burdensome. And yet, castles are not empty shells of hardship. They are lived-in spaces, layered with human presence. Servants rise before dawn to prepare meals. Pages and squires train in courtyards. Craftspeople repair harnesses, mend clothing, sharpen blades. The rhythm of castle life is structured but rarely comfortable. Furniture is sparse and often movable. Security requires flexibility. In times of peace, a castle may host guests, musicians, traveling clergy. In times of tension, those same halls may be stripped of non-essential items to prepare for defense. The very architecture that protects also isolates. Windows are small, views are controlled. The outside world is glimpsed through slits and battlements rather than expansive panes. Rain striking stone produces a hollow resonance. Thunder reverberates within walls. From the towers, the surrounding landscape appears wide and open. From within, the interior can feel confined. One must also consider that castles were not solely residences of nobility. They housed soldiers, servants, craftsmen, and sometimes entire communities during periods of danger. Space becomes contested. Privacy is minimal. Personal possessions are few. Even clothing contributes to discomfort. Layers of wool and linen are necessary for warmth. Armor, when worn, restricts movement. Shoes are simple leather constructions, vulnerable to dampness. Food, though sometimes abundant for the elite, lacks the variety modern expectations assume. Salted meats, preserved fish, bread, pottage. Fresh produce depends heavily on season. Storage areas are cool but susceptible to pests. Rats find their way into grain supplies. Cats roam to control them. Disease spreads easily in enclosed environments. Smoke irritates lungs. Close quarters encourage transmission of illness. Medical knowledge exists but remains limited. And still, the castle stands. Its silhouette at sunset suggests strength and stability. Visitors approaching from afar might imagine comfort behind those walls. They might picture warmth, feasting, and music echoing through grand chambers. Yet beneath that image lies the constant negotiation between defense and daily life. The castle is a fortress first. Everything else adapts around that reality. As dusk settles and torches flicker along battlements, the stone absorbs the fading light. Within the keep, servants bank fires for the night. The great hall empties gradually. Wind brushes the outer walls. From a distance, the castle seems peaceful again. Inside, it remains cold, drafty, and unyielding. And this is only the beginning of its story. Night deepens around the fortress, and the temperature drops with a quiet certainty that no amount of stone can prevent. Within the keep, the last embers in the hearth sink into a dim glow. Servants retreat to their sleeping places, which are seldom private chambers. Many rest in lofts above kitchens, along corridor alcoves, or in shared rooms where straw pallets lie side by side. Privacy is a luxury reserved for very few. The majority exist within a shared rhythm of breath, shifting limbs, and murmured dreams. The architecture itself shapes the quality of sleep. Stone floors, even when covered with rushes or woven mats, transmit cold upward through bedding. Drafts slip beneath doorways and through imperfect shutters. Heavy curtains around beds serve not only as a symbol of status but as insulation. Their thick fabric traps warmth close to the body, creating a small microclimate within the larger chill of the chamber. Yet even the most carefully enclosed bed does not eliminate discomfort. The mattress may sag unevenly. Feathers compress over time. Straw breaks down and must be replaced. Parasites, fleas, lice, find shelter in seams and stuffing. Bedding is shaken and aired when possible, but laundering is laborious and water-intensive. Above, in the upper reaches of towers, wind presses steadily against narrow windows. The sound is low and continuous, like breath moving through hollow bone. Rain striking stone can echo with surprising force. In winter, sleet rattles against wooden shutters. Moisture creeps into mortar joints, then freezes, widening cracks gradually over seasons. The castle is never fully sealed. Its defensive design demands openings for archers, ventilation for smoke, and access points for supplies. Each of these introduces vulnerability to the elements. In colder regions of northern Europe, frost forms along interior walls during harsh winters. Tapestries help reduce this effect, but they cannot transform stone into timber. Morning within the castle begins early. Before first light, kitchen servants stir. The kitchen is often a separate building within the courtyard or located at ground level of the keep, positioned to reduce fire risk to upper chambers. Its hearth is immense, capable of holding several cauldrons at once. Smoke funnels upward through a vent or louver, yet much of it lingers at shoulder height before dissipating. Preparing breakfast requires coordination. Bread from the previous day may be reheated. Porridge simmers slowly. Ale, safer than untreated water in many cases, is drawn from barrels. Salted meat is sliced sparingly. The kitchen floor is frequently damp from washing and spilled liquids. Ash gathers in corners. Iron hooks suspend pots over flame. The heat here contrasts sharply with the cool corridors beyond, yet the comfort is limited. The air is thick. Eyes water. Clothing absorbs smoke. Servants move between kitchen and hall carrying trenchers, flat pieces of bread used as plates, or wooden platters. The great hall slowly fills again, this time with morning light filtering through high windows. At the Lord's table, seating is arranged by rank. The elevated dais separates authority from the rest. Even within this hierarchy, comfort remains conditional. Chairs are heavy and upright. The posture required by etiquette leaves little room for relaxation. Beyond the hall, administrative duties occupy much of the day. The castle is not merely a residence but the center of a feudal estate. Documents are stored in chests, sealed with wax. Stewards track rents, harvest yields, and obligations owed by tenants. Quills scratch across parchment in chambers that are often cool enough to stiffen fingers. Ink can thicken in cold weather. Scribes warm their hands before beginning work. The light necessary for reading and writing depends on time of day and weather. On overcast mornings, additional candles may be required, increasing expense. The castle chapel offers a different atmosphere. Smaller and often more carefully finished than other rooms, it contains carved stone details, perhaps painted walls, and a modest altar. Yet even here, warmth is limited. Worshippers wrap themselves in cloaks during services in winter. Breath rises visibly in the air as prayers ascend. Outside in the courtyard, daily labor continues regardless of season. Armor must be maintained. Leather straps are inspected for wear. Horses are brushed and fed. Blacksmiths hammer at portable forges near the stables, sparks flying briefly before fading against gray stone. Training occupies much of the garrison's time. Archers practice in designated areas, aiming at straw targets. The repetitive thud of arrows striking becomes a familiar sound. Squires assist knights in maintaining equipment, polishing metal surfaces that quickly dull in damp air. Armor itself, though protective, is not comfortable attire. Even when custom-fitted, it restricts airflow and movement. Beneath it, padded garments absorb sweat. After training, these layers must be dried to prevent mildew and skin irritation. Water management remains a constant concern. Rainwater is collected from rooftops and directed toward cisterns. Wells provide more reliable supply, but contamination is a risk, particularly if waste disposal is poorly managed. In some castles, channels are carved to divert runoff away from foundations, yet during heavy storms, courtyards can become slick with mud. The smell of damp stone persists after rainfall. Moss grows along shaded walls. Wooden beams, though protected when possible, are vulnerable to rot over time. Maintenance is continuous and rarely glamorous. Food storage presents its own discomforts. Cellars carved into rock remain cool, suitable for preserving perishables. Yet these spaces are dim and often humid. Barrels of salted fish, casks of wine, sacks of grain line the walls. Rodents seek entry, gnawing at wood and cloth. Traps are set, cats encouraged to patrol. Spices, when available, are precious. Pepper, cinnamon, cloves, these arrive through long trade routes and are used sparingly to flavor dishes. Their presence signals wealth, yet they cannot mask entirely the monotony of preserved foods during lean months. In summer, insects proliferate. Flies gather near refuse heaps outside the walls. Without modern sanitation, waste disposal relies on pits, carts, and natural decomposition. The scent of refuse drifts unpredictably depending on wind direction. Windows remain open longer in warm weather, inviting both breeze and pests. At times, traveling entertainers arrive, minstrels, jugglers, storytellers. Their presence brings color and sound to the courtyard. Yet accommodation for them is basic. They sleep where space permits. Their performances occur in the same drafty hall used for meals. The social structure within the castle shapes daily experience as much as architecture. Nobles occupy upper chambers with access to better furnishings and relative privacy. Servants inhabit lower levels and peripheral spaces. Soldiers share barrack-style rooms or corners of towers. Each group experiences the building differently, yet none escapes its inherent austerity. Even celebrations cannot fully disguise structural discomfort. During feasts, long tables fill with roasted meats, bread, and ale. Musicians play. Candles multiply. The hall appears vibrant. Yet smoke thickens overhead. The noise reverberates against stone. Once festivities end, the hall returns quickly to its usual cool stillness. Winter evenings are particularly revealing. As darkness falls early, activities contract. Candles are rationed. People gather closer to hearths, though space is limited. The castle's vastness becomes more apparent when large portions remain unlit and unused. Wind intensifies against towers. Snow accumulates along battlements, drifting into corners where it melts slowly. Icicles form along outer walls. Guards pacing above must stamp their feet to maintain circulation. Within chambers, the effort to retain warmth is constant. Doors are closed firmly. Tapestries are checked for gaps. Extra blankets are layered atop beds. Even so, cold seeps through. Summer offers no complete relief. Sunlight striking stone all day can create interiors that feel heavy and airless. Ventilation is limited by narrow windows. Kitchens become nearly unbearable at midday. Servants sweat beneath layered garments. Insects find their way into grain stores, bed linens, and clothing chests. Without chemical treatments, mitigation relies on herbs, smoke, and vigilance. Beyond physical discomfort, there is also psychological weight. Castles are symbols of power, yet they are also sites of confinement. During times of unrest, gates close and drawbridges rise. The outside world becomes inaccessible. Supplies must last. Tension grows with each passing day of siege or threat. Even in peaceful periods, the high walls create separation from surrounding communities. The Lord may oversee land stretching miles beyond, yet daily life unfolds within stone boundaries. From the outside, these fortresses project dominance and security. From within, they demand adaptation. The castle is not designed for ease. It is engineered for resilience. As evening approaches once more, smoke rises from chimneys, merging with cooling air. The courtyard quiets gradually. Guards take their positions along parapets. Doors are secured with iron bars. Inside, the chill begins its return. And within these walls, another night of stone-bound endurance begins to unfold. Beyond the inner walls and towers, another dimension of discomfort reveals itself in the spaces between stone and sky. Castles were rarely isolated monuments rising from empty plains. Many were positioned on rocky outcrops, beside rivers, or along contested borders where visibility and defense outweighed ease of living. The terrain that granted strategic advantage often denied convenience. Consider a fortress perched upon a steep hill. The climb to its gates is long and winding, designed deliberately to exhaust approaching enemies. Yet that same incline challenges every cart bringing provisions. Barrels of grain must be hauled upward. Livestock driven toward the entrance grow reluctant on uneven slopes. During rain, the path becomes slick with mud, during frost, treacherous with ice. Those who reside within the walls depend upon this constant effort. Fuel must be transported regularly. Firewood does not appear by magic within the hearth. It is chopped in surrounding forests, bundled, lifted onto wagons, and pulled uphill. In winter, the demand intensifies. Wood piles shrink rapidly under steady use, and replenishment may be hindered by weather or conflict. Water, too, presents difficulty in elevated castles. Although some fortifications contain deep wells carved through bedrock, others rely on rain collection and stored reserves. Drawing water from great depth requires strength and patience. A single bucket may weigh heavily when filled. Multiply that by the needs of dozens or hundreds of inhabitants, and the labor becomes substantial. On windswept promontories overlooking sea or valley, exposure defines daily experience. The air rarely rests. It moves along battlements with persistent pressure. Cloaks snap and twist. Hair tangles. Even in temperate seasons, wind steals warmth from skin. In colder months, it sharpens the bite of frost, making open watch duty particularly taxing. Guards stationed along curtain walls must remain alert regardless of conditions. Hours pass slowly when the horizon shows no sign of disturbance. The stone beneath their boots radiates the stored chill of night. Gloves stiffen. Eyes water in gusts. Within the walls, the organization of space reflects hierarchy and practicality rather than comfort. The bailey, or enclosed courtyard, serves as a functional heart. Workshops line its perimeter, smithy, bakery, storage sheds. Yet these structures are often temporary additions built against more permanent walls. Timber frames shift over time. Roofs leak during heavy rain. Repairs are frequent. Laundry is done in troughs or near wells. Water splashes across stones, creating slick surfaces. In colder seasons, wet fabric stiffens as it dries outdoors. In summer, the sun bleaches cloth unevenly. Sanitation remains a persistent challenge. Waste disposal pits are situated beyond primary living areas, yet proximity cannot be entirely avoided. Refuse accumulates quickly in densely inhabited enclosures. Though efforts are made to manage it, the limited space complicates separation between living quarters and disposal sites. In some castles, small gardens are cultivated within the walls. Herbs for cooking and medicine grow in narrow plots. These patches provide freshness but require careful tending. Soil must be brought in if the ground is rocky. Irrigation depends on carried water. Even the gardens reveal constraint. Plants compete for light against towering walls. Wind disrupts delicate stems. Shade shifts unpredictably as the sun moves behind battlements. Consider also the kitchens during periods of high activity. When guests arrive or preparations are made for seasonal festivals, cooking intensifies. Multiple hearths blaze simultaneously. Cauldrons simmer with stews. Spits rotate large cuts of meat. The heat becomes oppressive, especially in enclosed spaces designed more for fire safety than ventilation. Kitchen workers labor near flame for hours. Their clothing absorbs smoke and grease. Floors grow slippery with drippings. Yet stepping outside offers no immediate relief, as the courtyard may be filled with similar smells from stables and workshops. Storage of perishables depends heavily on preservation methods. Meat is salted, smoked, or dried. Fish arrives preserved from coastal regions. Fresh produce is seasonal and must be consumed quickly. Inadequate storage leads to spoilage. The scent of rot occasionally escapes from neglected corners of cellars. Mice and insects persist as adversaries. Grain stores require vigilance. A single breach in a sack can invite infestation. Cats serve as guardians, yet cannot eliminate the problem entirely. In larger castles, domestic animals reside within walls for protection. Horses occupy stables built along inner ramparts. Their presence brings warmth but also odor and noise. Hooves strike wood. Chains rattle softly. Straw bedding must be replaced regularly. Falconry birds, prized among nobility, are kept in dedicated mews. Their care demands attention. They require fresh meat and controlled environments. Even these elegant creatures contribute to the practical complexities of castle life. Beyond physical discomfort, there exists a social rigidity shaped by stone boundaries. Individuals of different status navigate the same enclosed environment daily. Servants encounter nobles frequently yet remain separated by strict expectations. The spatial hierarchy reinforces social order. Upper chambers are accessible only to select individuals. Lower corridors are busy with laborers. Women in noble households oversee domestic management but also experience confinement. While some may travel between estates, many spend extended periods within castle walls, particularly during pregnancy or political uncertainty. Their chambers, though better appointed than others, are not free from drafts or dampness. Childhood within a castle carries its own constraints. Young pages and noble children are educated in manners, arms, and faith. Their play is shaped by space, courtyards rather than open fields, towers rather than forests. Climbing battlements may be discouraged for safety, yet curiosity persists. Education occurs in dim rooms where parchment reflects limited light. Tutors guide reading and writing by candle or narrow window. Winter months make study more challenging as daylight wanes early. Castles also serve as administrative centers for surrounding lands. Tenants arrive to pay rents or seek judgment in disputes. The hall fills with petitioners during designated days. Waiting within stone chambers for one's case to be heard can feel oppressive, particularly when ventilation is limited. Legal proceedings are conducted formally. The authority of the lord is reinforced by architecture, raised platforms, imposing backdrops of stone and tapestry. Yet the physical setting remains austere. Religious observances punctuate the calendar. Holy days bring processions within the courtyard, candles carried carefully against wind. The chapel fills beyond its modest capacity. Incense mingles with the scent of damp fabric. Kneeling upon stone floors tests endurance. As seasons shift, so too do the castle's discomforts. Autumn introduces damp chill before winter's full arrival. Rain saturates outer walls, seeping into crevices. Wooden doors swell slightly, sticking within frames. Footwear grows muddy quickly. Spring brings thaw and renewal, but also mud thickened by melted snow. Courtyards become soft underfoot. Wheels leave ruts. Drainage channels overflow if poorly maintained. Summer's brightness reveals cracks and wear in masonry. Repairs require skilled masons to climb scaffolds erected against walls. Stone blocks may need replacement after years of exposure. Throughout these cycles, maintenance never ceases. Lime mortar must be mixed and applied. Roof tiles replaced. Timber beams inspected for insect damage. Iron fittings cleaned of rust. A castle's imposing silhouette hides constant labor beneath. Even travel from one section to another can be inconvenient. Corridors are narrow and winding. Some staircases spiral tightly, forcing those ascending to turn repeatedly. Carrying heavy objects through such passageways requires balance and care. Headroom may be limited in older sections. Illness within a castle magnifies discomfort. Sick individuals are often confined to their chambers. Fresh air is limited. Remedies rely on herbs and humoral theory. Physicians, when available, bring knowledge shaped by prevailing beliefs but constrained by limited tools. Outbreaks of contagious disease can spread quickly in enclosed quarters. Isolation is difficult. Fear accompanies illness, though it remains unspoken in the quiet rhythm of daily tasks. And yet, despite all of this, life continues within these walls. Music occasionally echoes through halls. Laughter rises from kitchens during lighter moments. Children's footsteps ring against stone. A hawk takes flight from a gloved hand under clear sky. The castle embodies paradox. It protects and restricts. It symbolizes strength yet demands endurance. As the sun lowers behind outer ramparts, long shadows stretch across the bailey. The wind shifts. Fires are prepared once more. Guards exchange positions along walls overlooking fields that glow briefly in evening light. Inside, the air begins to cool again. When mist gathers around the outer walls at dawn, the fortress appears to float above the earth. Vapors curl along the base of towers and drift across the moat, softening the edges of battlements. From a distance, the structure may seem almost gentle in this light. Yet within its walls, another kind of discomfort emerges, one less visible than cold stone or uneven floors, but equally persistent. Light itself is a scarce commodity in many parts of a castle. The thickness of masonry that ensures defense also restricts illumination. Even during clear days, interior corridors remain dim. The sun's path across the sky reaches only certain windows for brief intervals. In winter, when daylight is short and often muted by cloud, entire sections remain in half-shadow from morning until dusk. This limited light shapes the rhythm of labor. Textile work, for example, requires careful attention to thread and pattern. Women tasked with embroidery or mending must position themselves near narrow windows to see clearly. Their work slows when clouds pass overhead. Fine stitches become more difficult in fading afternoon light. Illumination after sunset depends on candles or oil lamps. Tallow candles, common in many households, produce a faint odor as they burn. Beeswax burns cleaner but is more costly. Each flame must be used judiciously. Wax drips onto wooden tables. Smoke smudges low ceilings. In chambers where manuscripts are read or written, the placement of light matters greatly. A poorly angled flame casts deep shadows across parchment. Scribes lean forward to avoid blocking their own illumination. Over time, this posture strains the back and neck. The physical strain of navigating the castle's interior should not be overlooked. Doorways may be narrow, thresholds raised to prevent drafts. Floors slope slightly toward drainage channels. Moving from one level to another involves repeated climbing. Servants carrying water, trays of food, or bundles of linen ascend and descend countless times each day. Even clothing contributes to fatigue. Layers of wool and linen, necessary for warmth and modesty, restrict airflow. In colder months, garments grow heavier. In warmer seasons, they cling uncomfortably. Footwear absorbs moisture easily and dries slowly, particularly in regions with frequent rain. Personal hygiene remains constrained by available resources. While some noble households maintain bathing chambers equipped with large wooden tubs, these are not permanent fixtures in every castle. Water must be heated in cauldrons and transported bucket by bucket. After bathing, the used water must be removed manually. The effort involved discourages frequent immersion. Hair is washed sparingly. Combs are essential tools for managing both appearance and parasites. Herbs such as rosemary or lavender may be used in attempts to freshen garments, yet their fragrance fades quickly amid the prevailing smells of smoke and livestock. The question of noise within stone walls is complex. Though castles may seem solid and quiet from afar, interior acoustics amplify certain sounds. A dropped object can echo through corridors. Raised voices carry unexpectedly. During storms, wind pushes against arrow slits with a low moan that travels along passageways. At night, the absence of consistent background noise makes small disturbances more noticeable. The creak of timber beams adjusting to temperature changes, the shifting of a door in its frame, or the scratch of rodents within walls can interrupt sleep. In addition to environmental discomforts, there is the strain of constant readiness. Castles exist within political landscapes that are rarely static. Alliances shift. Conflicts arise with little warning. The garrison must remain prepared. Weapons are stored within reach. Armor is inspected regularly. This atmosphere of vigilance influences daily life. Drills may occur without much notice. Supplies are inventoried with attention to siege endurance. Grain stores are measured carefully. Salted provisions are rotated to prevent spoilage. The looming possibility of siege brings particular hardship. When gates close and drawbridges lift, inhabitants may be confined for extended periods. External trade halts. Fresh produce becomes scarce. Water reserves are monitored closely. Waste disposal grows more difficult. Crowding intensifies during such times. Surrounding villagers may seek refuge within walls, increasing the population beyond its usual capacity. Sleeping spaces become tighter. Tempers may fray, though restraint is expected. Psychological discomfort accompanies confinement. The horizon, once visible from battlements as open countryside, becomes a site of threat. Movement beyond the walls is scrutinized for signs of approaching forces. Fires in distant fields raise concern. The rhythm of ordinary life outside continues beyond reach. Yet even in peaceful intervals, the castle's location can isolate. High atop a hill or surrounded by marshland, the fortress separates its inhabitants from broader community life. Travel requires effort. Visiting markets or neighboring estates demands preparation. During heavy rain or snow, roads become nearly impassable. For women tasked with managing domestic affairs, the isolation may feel pronounced. Though surrounded by attendants, their world is bounded by stone. Letters serve as connection to distant relatives, yet communication is slow. News arrives weeks or months after events occur. Children raised within these walls grow accustomed to limited landscapes. Their games adapt to courtyards and towers. Forests and rivers may exist beyond sight, yet access is controlled and supervised. The chapel within the castle offers spiritual solace, but even their discomfort intrudes. Stone pews or simple benches provide minimal support. Kneeling upon cold floors tests endurance during lengthy observances. Drafts move through sacred space as freely as through any other chamber. Music, when present, resonates richly against masonry. Yet prolonged exposure to echoing sound can fatigue the senses. Instruments must be tuned frequently due to temperature fluctuations affecting strings and wood. The matter of heating deserves further reflection. Fireplaces in larger chambers may be built into walls with chimneys rising upward. However, many earlier castles rely on central hearths without efficient flues. Smoke accumulates before escaping. Soot coats ceilings and upper walls, darkening them over time. Chimneys require regular cleaning to prevent dangerous buildup. This task is unpleasant and messy. Those assigned to it endure dust and residue. Fuel scarcity can become acute during harsh winters. Surrounding forests may be depleted gradually. Transporting timber across snow-covered ground requires effort from both humans and animals. Textiles, used for insulation and decoration, demand maintenance. Tapestries hung along walls collect dust and smoke. They must be removed occasionally for cleaning, a laborious process. Exposure to dampness encourages mold growth. Repairs are necessary when fabric tears or fades. Furniture, though limited, is heavy and difficult to move. Chests store clothing and valuables, yet their lids swell in humid weather. Hinges creak. Locks jam if not oiled properly. Even the act of preparing for sleep reflects adaptation rather than comfort. Chambers are aired during daylight when possible, though windows are small. Bedding is shaken to dislodge debris. Candles are extinguished carefully to conserve supply and reduce fire risk. Nighttime navigation through corridors requires caution. Without continuous lighting, inhabitants carry small lamps or rely on memory. Uneven steps present hazard in darkness. The presence of animals within the castle, though practical, influences atmosphere continuously. Horses stamp and snort in stables beneath living quarters. Dogs roam freely, offering companionship but contributing to noise and occasional disorder. Falcons cry from their perches. Chickens cluck in sheltered corners. Insects persist despite efforts to manage them. Fleas thrive in bedding and straw. Flies gather in kitchens and near refuse pits. Beeswax candles attract small moths that flutter briefly before meeting flame. Medical care within castle walls is constrained by knowledge and resources. Minor injuries from training or daily labor are common. Splinters from wooden beams, cuts from blades, burns from hearths. Remedies include poultices made from herbs grown in small gardens. Recovery occurs within the same drafty chambers where injury took place. Serious illness may require the attention of a physician summoned from a nearby town, but travel delays response. In times of epidemic beyond the walls, fear infiltrates even fortified interiors. As seasons turn once more, maintenance continues without pause. Masons patch cracks widened by frost. Carpenters replace weakened beams. Roofs are inspected for missing tiles after storms. The castle's imposing facade conceals ongoing vulnerability to weather and time. And still, daily routines persist. Meals are prepared. Accounts are tallied. Weapons are sharpened. Prayers are offered. From afar, the castle remains a symbol of power etched against sky. From within, it is a structure demanding resilience from all who dwell inside. Beneath the visible floors and lofty chambers lies another world, seldom imagined when one thinks of medieval fortresses. Subterranean spaces form the hidden anatomy of many castles. Storage vaults, passageways carved through bedrock, concealed chambers intended for refuge or escape, these areas introduce a different dimension of unease. Air grows heavier as one descends. Light diminishes rapidly. Moisture collects along walls where the sun never reaches. Cellars serve essential purposes. Barrels of ale and wine rest in cool darkness. Wheels of cheese age slowly on wooden shelves. Salted meats hang from beams. The stable temperature of underground rooms preserves supplies effectively, yet humidity must be monitored carefully. Too much dampness invites mold. Too little allows food to dry excessively. The scent in such spaces is dense, earth, fermentation, aged timber. Footsteps echo differently here, muffled by packed soil or stone slabs. Candles flicker uncertainly, their small flames disturbed by subtle air currents moving through unseen cracks. Some castles include concealed corridors intended as emergency exits. These narrow tunnels, often steep and winding, are practical during siege but far from comfortable. The ceilings may be low. Walls brush against shoulders. Without frequent use, they accumulate dust and debris. Navigating them requires both caution and memory. Prisons are also housed within these lower levels. Dungeons, contrary to dramatic portrayals, vary widely in structure. Some are simple chambers with barred doors. Others are pits accessible only by ladder. Ventilation is minimal. Light enters through small openings near ceiling height, if at all. Imprisonment in such conditions is harsh. Cold seeps through stone. Straw bedding provides limited relief. Sound from above is distant and distorted. The psychological strain of confinement adds to physical discomfort. Returning to upper levels, flat surfaces are rare. Steep pitches allow rain and snow to slide away quickly, but they require constant attention. Tiles crack under shifting temperatures. Wooden shingles warp with moisture. Climbing to inspect these areas demands balance and courage, particularly when wind sweeps across heights. Chimneys, rising like stone spines, accumulate soot that must be cleared periodically. Those tasked with this maintenance descend into narrow shafts coated with residue. The work is dirty and physically demanding. On the outer walls, parapets provide defense but little shelter. During prolonged watch, guards face the elements directly. In summer, sunlight reflects off pale stone, creating glare. In winter, frost gathers along crenellations, making surfaces slick. The battlements offer sweeping views of surrounding lands, yet this vantage point comes with exposure. There is no barrier against wind-driven rain. Armor, though protective in combat, offers limited insulation against prolonged dampness. Daily rhythms shift subtly with the castle's function as a political center. Envoys arrive bearing letters sealed with wax. Their horses are stabled temporarily. Messengers wait in antechambers until summoned. The flow of information through these walls influences decisions that may affect entire regions. Yet the physical setting of such exchanges remains austere. Reception rooms, though decorated with banners or heraldic symbols, lack plush furnishings. Chairs are carved but firm. Floors are covered with woven rush mats rather than thick carpets. The concept of privacy differs significantly from modern expectations. Personal correspondence may be composed in relatively secluded chambers, but servants enter frequently to tend fires or deliver food. Sound travels unpredictably, and confidential discussion within noble apartments, decorative elements attempt to soften surroundings. Painted wooden panels depict scenes of hunting or religious imagery. Richly dyed fabrics hang from bed frames. Small chests contain jewelry and personal items. Still, beneath these embellishments lies stone. Humidity fluctuates with weather, affecting both comfort and preservation of belongings. Metal objects tarnish quickly if neglected. Parchment curls slightly in damp conditions. Leather stiffens when dry and molds when moist. Medical practices within castles reveal additional discomfort. Minor surgeries or bloodletting procedures are performed in chambers not designed as clinical spaces. Surfaces are wiped clean as best as possible, but sanitation remains rudimentary. Herbal infusions are brewed in kitchens before being administered to the ill. The sick may be relocated to rooms perceived as warmer or better ventilated, yet options are limited. Recovery depends as much on fortune as on treatment. Pregnancy and childbirth occur within these walls as well. Women are attended by midwives and female relatives. Bedchambers are rearranged to accommodate the event. Fires burn continuously to provide warmth. Tapestries are drawn tightly to reduce drafts. Despite efforts to create a protected environment, the inherent cold of stone cannot be entirely banished. The vulnerability of life beginning within a fortress built for war underscores a poignant contrast. Festivals and ceremonies attempt to transform austere spaces temporarily. During weddings or seasonal celebrations, greenery is brought inside, branches of evergreen in winter, garlands of flowers in spring. Floors are freshly strewn with clean rushes. Extra candles brighten halls. Music echoes vibrantly. Dancers move across uneven surfaces with practiced care. For brief intervals, the castle seems animated by joy. Yet once festivities conclude, decorations wither. Candles burn down. Halls revert to their customary restraint. Beyond the main keep and courtyard, some castles include outer wards or ancillary buildings. Workshops for carpenters, smiths, and coopers operate in these areas. The constant hammering of metal, shaping of wood, and turning of barrels adds to the auditory landscape. Though essential, these sounds contribute to a sense of perpetual labor. Blacksmith forges radiate intense heat. Sparks leap against darkened walls. The rhythmic clang of hammer on anvil reverberates across stone surfaces. Carpenters plane beams and fashion doors sturdy enough to withstand both weather and attack. The scent of freshly cut timber contrasts with the heavier smells elsewhere. Travelers arriving at the gate encounter layers of security before entry. Drawbridges creak as they lower. Portcullises rise with effort. Guards inspect goods and inquire about purpose. This controlled access ensures safety but also reinforces separation from surrounding life. In times of political instability, tension heightens at these thresholds. Suspicion shapes interactions. Supplies are scrutinized carefully. Consider also the seasonal challenges of agriculture connected to the castle. Though fields may lie beyond walls, their productivity determines comfort within. Poor harvests lead to rationing. Grain reserves shrink. Bread becomes denser as flour stretches thin. Hunting expeditions supplement provisions when possible. Yet game is not guaranteed. Weather affects animal migration. Forest access may be restricted by rival claims. The castle's inhabitants depend upon networks extending beyond its stone perimeter, yet those networks are fragile. Trade disruptions can reduce availability of salt, spices, or luxury textiles. Political disputes may delay shipments. Maritime storms can sink vessels carrying essential goods. Within the walls, adaptation becomes routine. Clothing is patched repeatedly rather than replaced. Tools are repaired instead of discarded. Wood scraps are saved for kindling. Educational pursuits continue despite environmental challenges. Young nobles learn languages, history, and religious texts in rooms that may be either too cold in winter or overly warm in summer. Tutors adjust lessons according to available light and comfort. Artisans practice their crafts in marginal spaces, refining skills under imperfect conditions. As twilight descends once more, shadows lengthen across uneven floors. Torches are lit along corridors. Their flames cast wavering patterns against stone, revealing textures carved by centuries of weather. The fortress remains imposing from afar. Yet inside, the daily negotiation with environment, structure, and circumstance defines life more than any banner or coat of arms. Comfort is not the guiding principle of design. Survival, authority, and resilience shape every arch and tower. And so the castle endures, less a palace of ease, more a complex organism of stone, sustained by those who adapt to its unyielding character. Time alters every fortress, even those raised with the intention of permanence. Centuries pass, and the structure absorbs more than weather and warfare. It gathers memory in layers, alterations added by successive generations, repairs undertaken after fire or neglect, expansions reflecting new ambitions. No castle remains frozen in the moment of its founding. Each becomes a record of changing priorities etched into stone. Architectural styles shift gradually. Early keeps built with massive rectangular forms give way, in later periods, to more refined layouts influenced by evolving tastes and military strategies. Arrow slits widen to accommodate crossbows, then are reshaped again as firearms begin to redefine siege warfare. Towers once designed purely for defense become embellished with decorative flourishes intended to project prestige rather than intimidation. The introduction of gunpowder transforms fortification logic. Walls that once resisted scaling ladders and battering rams prove vulnerable to cannon fire. In response, some strongholds add angled bastions to deflect projectiles. Others thicken their outer layers or reinforce foundations with additional earthworks. The geometry of defense becomes more complex, less vertical, and more grounded. These modifications are not merely technical. They reveal anxiety about obsolescence. A castle that cannot adapt risks becoming symbolic rather than functional. Its grandeur may remain, but its military relevance diminishes. Within interiors, adjustments mirror broader cultural shifts. Windows enlarge slightly during later medieval centuries as glass production improves. Though still costly, glazed panes become more common in principal chambers. Light enters with greater clarity, altering daily rhythms. Rooms feel less cavernous when daylight is no longer filtered solely through narrow slits. Flooring evolves as well. Rushes gradually give way to wooden planks in certain areas. Carpets imported through expanding trade networks add color and insulation. Though comfort remains relative, these incremental changes soften austerity. Written records become more abundant. Chanceries within castles maintain archives of charters, land grants, and legal decrees. Scribes copy manuscripts meticulously, preserving not only administrative information but also religious and literary texts. Storage chests hold parchment bundled carefully to protect against dampness. The presence of these documents underscores another dimension of castle life, governance. From these fortified centers, lords administer territories, adjudicate disputes, and collect taxes. The architecture supports authority not only through defensive might but through spatial hierarchy. Throne rooms or audience halls occupy central positions, emphasizing power through scale and placement. Ceremonial rituals reinforce social order. Homage ceremonies, during which vassals pledge loyalty, occur within structured environments designed to convey solemnity. Participants kneel on cold stone while banners hang overhead. The physical discomfort of the setting contrasts with the gravity of the oath. Religious observance remains integral. Many castles include chapels adorned modestly yet thoughtfully. Stained glass, where available, casts colored light across altars. Incense smoke drifts upward, mingling with the ever-present scent of stone. Liturgical chants echo against curved ceilings, their resonance amplified by enclosed space. Burials sometimes take place within castle grounds. Small crypts or adjacent churchyards hold generations connected to the estate. Carved effigies rest atop tombs, depicting armored figures or clasped hands. These memorials link the living inhabitants to ancestral lineage, reinforcing continuity amid change. Outside the walls, surrounding settlements expand gradually. Villages develop in the castle's shadow, providing labor and trade. Market days bring farmers, craftsmen, and merchants into proximity with fortified authority. The relationship between castle and community is symbiotic yet unequal. During times of peace, the fortress may function more as administrative hub than military bastion. Its imposing walls remain, but the frequency of armed conflict decreases in certain regions. Gardens flourish in formerly defensive courtyards. Decorative elements receive greater attention than battlements. Landscape design becomes an expression of refinement. Orchards are planted methodically. Fish ponds are maintained carefully to ensure steady food supply. Pathways are laid with gravel to reduce mud during rainy seasons. These adjustments indicate an increasing desire for order beyond immediate survival. Technological innovations continue to influence domestic arrangements. Improved chimneys reduce smoke accumulation indoors. Brickwork supplements stone in some renovations, allowing for more intricate patterns. Iron hardware becomes sturdier and more standardized as metallurgy advances. Furniture grows slightly more elaborate. Chairs incorporate carved backs. Tables are constructed with greater stability. Storage chests feature decorative iron hinges. While still functional, these items begin to reflect aesthetic preferences. Travel narratives from later medieval periods described castles not solely as military structures but as residences of culture. Minstrels perform in great halls. Illuminated manuscripts are commissioned as displays of wealth and piety. Tournaments take place in adjacent fields, transforming martial skill into spectacle. Armor itself becomes more ornate during certain eras. Etched designs and polished surfaces reflect status. What was once purely protective acquires ceremonial dimensions. The gleam of metal under sunlight adds visual drama to gatherings. However, decline can follow prosperity. Shifts in political power render some castles redundant. New capitals arise elsewhere. Trade routes change direction. Maintenance becomes costly without sufficient revenue. Roofs deteriorate. Timber beams rot. Sections collapse gradually. Abandonment does not occur overnight. Servants depart first, seeking employment in more active households. Minor repairs are postponed. Gardens become overgrown. Moss creeps along walls unchecked. Weather accelerates decay. Frost wedges into cracks. Rain infiltrates mortar joints. Plants root within crevices, widening fissures slowly but persistently. Towers that once signaled dominance begin to crumble at their edges. In certain regions, castles are repurposed. Stones are quarried from abandoned walls to construct nearby homes. Defensive moats are drained and converted into farmland. The fortress becomes a resource rather than a residence. Romantic imagination later reframes these ruins. Artists sketch ivy-covered arches against dramatic skies. Writers compose tales of chivalry inspired by remnants. Travelers wander through collapsed halls, reflecting on vanished eras. Yet beneath aesthetic appreciation lies material reality. Each fallen stone represents labor invested centuries earlier. Each shattered window testifies to shifts in technology and governance. Archaeological investigation reveals details often overlooked in grand narratives. Fragments of pottery unearthed in courtyards indicate trade connections. Animal bones suggest dietary patterns. Discarded tools illuminate everyday tasks rarely recorded in official documents. Even refuse pits contribute insight. Seeds preserved in soil layers reveal crops cultivated nearby. Textile remnants indicate fabric types used by various social strata. These small traces reconstruct daily existence more accurately than idealized chronicles. Climate fluctuations across centuries affect castle viability. Periods of cooler temperatures reduce agricultural output, intensifying strain on fortified communities. Warmer intervals encourage expansion. Environmental factors intertwine with political events in shaping a fortress's lifespan. Comparisons across regions highlight diversity. Castles in northern Europe adapt to harsher winters with thicker insulation and steeper roofs. Mediterranean fortifications incorporate courtyards designed to maximize airflow during heat. Materials vary according to local geology, granite in one area, limestone in another. The cultural symbolism attached to castles evolves over time. What begins as a demonstration of feudal authority transforms into emblem of heritage. National identities later appropriate these structures as icons of historical continuity. Restoration efforts in modern periods introduce new complexities. Conservators must decide which era to emphasize when repairing damaged sections. Should additions from later centuries be preserved, or should the building be returned to an earlier appearance? Each choice shapes public perception. Tourism brings renewed activity. Visitors traverse staircases once worn by armored boots. Informational plaques explain construction techniques. Gift shops occupy spaces formerly used for storage or guard duty. Electric lighting replaces torches. Safety railings are installed along parapets. Pathways are smoothed to accommodate modern footwear. Despite these interventions, echoes of earlier life persist. Acoustic qualities remain distinctive within vaulted chambers. Temperature variations between sunlit and shaded areas still surprise newcomers. The sheer thickness of walls continues to inspire quiet reflection. Scholarly study deepens understanding of social hierarchies embedded within architecture. Spatial analysis reveals patterns of access control, who could enter certain rooms and who could not. Proximity to the central hall often correlates with rank. Peripheral areas housed servants and laborers. Gendered spaces become apparent through artifact distribution. Items associated with textile production cluster in particular chambers. Weapon storage concentrates elsewhere. Such findings challenge simplified assumptions about medieval life. In some cases, castles become sites of memory for darker episodes. Imprisonment of political rivals. Suppression of uprisings. Executions conducted within inner courtyards. These events leave intangible yet enduring marks. Modern commemoration sometimes acknowledges these histories through exhibitions or interpretive materials. The fortress thus serves not only as monument to power but as reminder of conflict and suffering. Educational programs invite students to explore engineering principles embodied in thick ramparts and vaulted ceilings. Understanding load distribution, material strength, and defensive geometry connects medieval ingenuity to contemporary design. Digital reconstructions allow viewers to visualize lost sections. Three-dimensional models simulate original paint colors, furnishings, and inhabitants. Technology bridges temporal gaps, offering glimpses into environments no longer intact. Yet no simulation fully captures sensory realities. The chill of dawn air on exposed stone. The smell of wood smoke embedded in beams. The uneven rhythm of footsteps across worn steps. As seasons continue their cycle around surviving walls, vegetation integrates itself into architecture. Wildflowers bloom within abandoned courtyards. Birds nest in arrow slits. Trees root near foundations, their growth both picturesque and destructive. The interplay between nature and stone becomes ongoing negotiation. Preservation requires intervention to prevent collapse, yet some degree of weathering is inevitable. Patina adds character while simultaneously signaling vulnerability. Community engagement often shapes the future of such sites. Local festivals may incorporate castle grounds. Concerts or historical reenactments draw crowds. Revenue from events supports maintenance. At night, illuminated facades present dramatic silhouettes against dark skies. Artificial light traces outlines once visible only by torch or moon. Contemporary visitors experience layered timelines simultaneously. Medieval masonry supports modern scaffolding during restoration. Ancient staircases lead to exhibitions curated with current scholarship. The past is not isolated, it intersects continuously with present interpretation. Thus the castle's story extends beyond its original occupants. It becomes archive, classroom, symbol, and gathering place. Its meaning shifts with each generation that encounters it. Stone endures longer than flesh, yet even stone transforms. Edges soften. Colors fade. Surfaces fracture. What remains is neither wholly ancient nor entirely modern, but a composite shaped by centuries of adaptation. In contemplating such structures, one perceives resilience not as static strength but as capacity for change. Fortresses once erected to repel enemies now welcome visitors. Chambers once reserved for nobility are traversed by curious travelers. Defensive towers offer panoramic views rather than strategic advantage. The calm weight of masonry continues to anchor landscapes, reminding observers that history is built gradually, altered incrementally, and understood only through patient attention. And within that enduring presence lies a quiet testament to human intention, ambitious, flawed, evolving, etched into the very contours of enduring walls. Beyond the visible silhouette of towers and curtain walls, the castle exists within a broader network of roads, rivers, and shifting allegiances. Approach routes determine much about its influence. A fortress positioned near a navigable waterway commands trade and communication. Barges drift along slow currents, carrying wool, grain, timber, or stone. Tolls are collected at designated crossings, reinforcing the authority of those who control the banks. River mist at dawn partially conceals battlements, creating an impression of emergence from vapor. The interplay between landscape and masonry enhances both security and symbolism. Elevated ground provides advantage, yet proximity to fertile valleys ensures sustenance. Bridges linked to fortified gates are engineering feats in themselves. Stone arches must withstand seasonal flooding. Wooden sections require periodic replacement after rot or damage. Maintenance of such infrastructure reflects strategic foresight as much as architectural skill. Roadways connecting the castle to distant towns are rarely smooth. Ruts deepen with heavy carts. Mud accumulates after rain. Dust rises during dry months. Travel is slow, reinforcing the relative isolation of the stronghold. Messengers traverse these routes on horseback, calculating distances carefully to avoid exhaustion. Border regions introduce additional complexities. Castles constructed near contested frontiers often incorporate layered defenses and lookout towers positioned to observe neighboring territories. Signal systems using fire or banners transmit warnings across distances. Communication relies on visibility and coordination. Within such frontier environments, cultural exchange occurs alongside tension. Languages intermingle in markets. Architectural motifs from different traditions blend subtly. Decorative carvings reveal influences from adjacent realms, suggesting that even fortified boundaries remain permeable. The agricultural hinterland supporting the castle warrants closer attention. Fields are organized according to systems of rotation designed to preserve soil fertility. Peasants cultivate strips allocated under feudal agreements. Harvest times generate collective labor, with produce transported through gates for storage or taxation. Granaries positioned either within outer wards or nearby villages must remain dry and secure. Rodents pose constant threats to stored grain. Cats roam intentionally to deter infestation. Forests surrounding the estate provide more than timber. They supply game, fuel, and raw materials for construction. Regulations govern access, reserving certain rights for the lord while permitting limited gathering for tenants. Woodland management reflects awareness of sustainability long before modern terminology arises. Mills powered by water or wind grind grain into flour essential for daily bread. These installations represent technological sophistication. Gears and shafts crafted with precision convert natural energy into mechanical motion. The castle's economic stability often depends upon such auxiliary structures. Trade fairs held periodically in adjacent settlements transform the atmosphere dramatically. Temporary stalls display cloth dyed in vivid hues, metalwork from distant regions, and spices carried along complex commercial routes. News travels with merchants, bringing accounts of distant conflicts, marriages between noble houses, or shifts in papal authority. Coinage exchanged during these events bears insignia that shift over time, reflecting political transitions. The circulation of currency integrates the castle's domain into broader economic systems. Judicial functions extend beyond internal governance. Courts convene to resolve disputes among tenants. Cases involve land boundaries, inheritance claims, or breaches of customary obligations. Proceedings occur in designated chambers where legal authority is visibly embodied by architecture. Punishments vary according to offense and status. Public displays of correction reinforce social hierarchy. Stocks or pillories positioned near gates serve as cautionary symbols. Yet not all justice is punitive. Reconciliation ceremonies also occur, restoring community cohesion. The rhythms of liturgical calendars shape activity throughout the year. Feast days interrupt routine labor. Pilgrimages depart from castle grounds toward shrines associated with revered saints. Relics housed in chapels attract visitors seeking blessing or healing. Monastic communities located within traveling distance maintain relationships with castle authorities. Donations of land or funds secure spiritual favor and political alliances. Monks provide literacy and administrative expertise. In return, fortifications may offer protection during unrest. Educational influences from such religious centers introduce philosophical and scientific ideas. Astronomical observations recorded in manuscripts inform agricultural timing. Medical treatises circulate among learned individuals. The castle thus participates indirectly in intellectual currents of its era. Maritime connections expand possibilities further when a fortress lies near coastal regions. Harbors bustle with vessels carrying cargo across seas. Salted fish, olive oil, and fine ceramics arrive from distant shores. Sailors bring tales of storms and unfamiliar customs, enriching the collective imagination. Defensive considerations adapt accordingly. Sea-facing walls must withstand not only human aggression but also corrosive salt air. Watchtowers monitor horizons for approaching fleets. Beacon systems communicate with inland allies when sails appear unexpectedly. Diplomatic marriages intertwine lineages across territories. Brides travel significant distances to inhabit unfamiliar fortresses. Their arrival introduces new fashions, culinary preferences, and retinues of attendants. Cultural synthesis unfolds gradually within chambers that once reflected a single tradition. Cuisine evolves with these exchanges. Spices once rare become occasional luxuries. Recipes incorporate influences from neighboring regions. Kitchens experiment within constraints of available resources. Textile production gains prominence as trade expands. Imported silk inspires imitation using local materials. Embroidery patterns grow more intricate. Clothing becomes an expression of affiliation and aspiration. Weaponry also transforms through intercultural contact. Designs for blades, shields, and armor incorporate techniques learned from adversaries or allies. Military innovation rarely occurs in isolation, it responds to observed strengths elsewhere. Weather anomalies occasionally disrupt established routines. Extended drought reduces crop yields and strains water supplies. Severe storms damage outbuildings and flood lower courtyards. Adaptation requires collective effort, reinforcing communal interdependence. Plague or epidemic introduces more profound disruption. Population declines affect labor availability and military capacity. Abandoned dwellings appear within nearby villages. Surviving inhabitants confront both grief and logistical challenges. Such crises sometimes alter social structures. Labor shortages empower surviving workers to negotiate improved conditions. Feudal bonds loosen incrementally in certain regions. Castles must recalibrate relationships with those who sustain them. Exploration during later centuries extends horizons dramatically. Reports of distant continents reach European strongholds through travelers and printed pamphlets. Curiosity about unfamiliar lands reshapes economic ambitions. Some castles invest in ventures connected to overseas trade. Printed books gradually supplement handwritten manuscripts. Portable presses increase access to information. Literacy expands beyond clerical circles. Libraries within fortified residences grow in diversity, containing works on navigation, philosophy, and emerging sciences. Scientific instruments appear in select chambers. Astrolabes, globes, and early telescopes signal engagement with broader intellectual movements. Observation of celestial bodies becomes both scholarly pursuit and navigational necessity. Artistic patronage reflects shifting tastes. Portraiture gains popularity, capturing likenesses of residents against backdrops that include glimpses of battlements or gardens. These paintings preserve visual records of attire and environment. Musical composition evolves as well. New instruments accompany traditional ones during gatherings. Harmonies grow more complex. Sound fills vaulted halls in patterns distinct from earlier centuries. Eventually, centralized monarchies consolidate power in various regions. Private fortresses lose some strategic autonomy as royal armies and bureaucracies expand. Castles may be integrated into national defense systems or converted into administrative centers under crown authority. Legal reforms standardize procedures that once varied by locale. Written statutes replace customary oral traditions. Record-keeping becomes more systematic. Architectural spaces dedicated to archives expand accordingly. In some territories, revolutionary movements challenge inherited hierarchies. Symbols of feudal authority become targets of protest. Fortifications are stormed or dismantled intentionally. The political meaning of walls shifts from protection to oppression in certain narratives. Subsequent generations reassess these interpretations. What one era perceives as tyranny, another may reinterpret as heritage. Memory remains contested, layered like masonry. Industrialization introduces further transformation. Railways bypass ancient roads, altering trade patterns permanently. Urban centers grow elsewhere, diminishing rural strongholds' significance. Some castles are adapted into residences for industrial magnates seeking romantic associations with nobility. Modern conservation ethics emerge gradually. Scholars debate whether to restore structures fully or preserve them as evocative ruins. Funding sources vary from private patrons to governmental agencies. International charters establish principles guiding intervention. Archaeometry applies scientific methods to dating materials and analyzing composition. Carbon dating, dendrochronology, and chemical analysis refine understanding of construction phases. Precision replaces conjecture in many instances. Educational outreach expands access. School groups traverse courtyards while guides explain defensive strategies. Exhibitions highlight daily life of ordinary inhabitants rather than focusing solely on aristocratic narratives. Digital archives make documents accessible globally. Researchers examine scanned charters without traveling physically. Scholarship becomes collaborative across continents. Yet despite technological mediation, standing within a stone chamber evokes distinct sensation. Acoustic resonance, filtered light, and tactile surfaces resist complete virtualization. Physical presence engages senses differently than images on screens. Seasonal cycles continue to shape visitor experience. Autumn leaves accumulate along pathways. Winter frost outlines architectural details sharply. Spring growth softens harsh lines. Summer sunlight intensifies contrast between shadow and illumination. Wildlife adapts to restored habitats. Bats roost in high vaults. Swallows weave nests beneath eaves. Ecological management plans balance preservation with biodiversity. Community identity often intertwines with the fortress silhouette. Local emblems incorporate tower outlines. Festivals commemorate historical events associated with the site. Stories passed through generations maintain connection even when direct lineage fades. Thus the castle persists as dynamic entity rather than static relic. It anchors geography, memory, scholarship, and imagination simultaneously. Its stones bear marks of ambition, conflict, adaptation, and reinterpretation. Across centuries, perspectives multiply. What began as instrument of dominion evolves into canvas upon which successive eras project their values. Each layer of understanding adds complexity without erasing what came before. Standing beneath weathered battlements, one perceives continuity amid transformation. The fortress remains present, not as an unchanging monument, but as participant in ongoing dialogue between past and present, an enduring testament to human capacity to build, to alter, and to reconsider what has been built. Long after banners have faded and heraldic shields have lost their pigment, the castle continues to shape the inner landscapes of those who encounter it. Writers of the early modern period begin to reinterpret fortified architecture through allegory. Massive walls become metaphors for endurance, isolation, or pride. Towers represent aspiration or watchfulness. In manuscripts circulated among learned circles, the castle appears less as a military installation and more as a symbol of the human condition. Cartographers include these structures prominently on maps. Rendered in miniature with exaggerated battlements, they mark authority over territory. Their placement influences how regions are perceived from afar. Travelers studying such maps imagine the skyline before they ever glimpse it directly. Surveying techniques grow increasingly precise. Engineers measure angles and distances using calibrated instruments. Plans are drawn to scale, revealing proportional relationships hidden from casual observers. Geometry, once intuitive in construction, becomes documented in systematic diagrams. Military academies analyze historical sieges. Treatises examine successes and failures in defensive strategy. Diagrams illustrate trajectories of artillery fire. Students learn how terrain, supply lines, and morale contribute to outcomes as much as masonry thickness. In some cases, former fortresses are converted into academies themselves. Classrooms occupy chambers once reserved for arms storage. Courtyards serve as drill grounds for cadets. Education replaces feudal residence, yet the architectural framework remains largely intact. Museological practice emerges gradually. Curators collect artifacts uncovered during restoration, arrowheads, fragments of stained glass, remnants of chain mail. These items are catalogued carefully and displayed within glass cases. Labels provide context that transforms isolated objects into narrative threads. Conservation science confronts complex challenges. Moisture infiltration threatens frescoes uncovered beneath layers of plaster. Specialists analyze pigments to determine original composition. Decisions must balance authenticity with structural safety. In certain regions, nationalist movements elevate castles as emblems of collective heritage. Paintings and lithographs circulate widely, depicting romantic silhouettes against dramatic skies. Poets reference crumbling towers as witnesses to historical trials. Such imagery strengthens emotional connection between populace and place. Meanwhile, economic pressures sometimes prompt adaptive reuse. Banquet halls become event venues. Guest rooms are furnished to accommodate overnight visitors. Hospitality infrastructure integrates subtly into ancient corridors. Modern plumbing and heating systems are installed with careful concealment. Archaeological digs continue to reveal overlooked phases of occupation. Excavations beneath courtyards uncover foundations predating the visible structure. Evidence of earlier wooden fortifications suggests that stone was not the original material. Stratigraphy reveals continuity extending further back than surface observation indicates. Coins minted under successive rulers emerge from soil layers. Their inscriptions chart political transitions more accurately than chronicles alone. Variations in metal content reflect economic fluctuations. Art historians study decorative programs within chapels. Faded murals depict saints rendered in stylistic conventions tied to specific workshops. Comparative analysis links artisans to broader regional networks. Through such examination, cultural exchange becomes visible within pigment and line. Climate science contributes new perspectives. Tree ring data from beams removed during restoration correlate with historical records of drought or abundant rainfall. Environmental patterns contextualize architectural decisions. Oral traditions associated with particular rooms persist across generations. Legends of hidden chambers or secret passages may lack documentary evidence, yet they reveal communal imagination. Folklore shapes visitor expectation, influencing interpretation. Acoustic studies examine how vaulted ceilings amplify sound. Researchers test resonance within great halls, noting frequencies that carry most effectively. Findings illuminate why certain spaces were favored for ceremonial gatherings. Lighting design in contemporary exhibitions attempts to approximate historical conditions without compromising preservation. Soft illumination highlights texture while avoiding damage from ultraviolet exposure. Shadows recreate a sense of depth reminiscent of torchlight. International organizations establish protective designations. Inclusion on heritage lists draws global attention and funding. Such recognition acknowledges universal value while respecting local stewardship. Digital humanities projects compile extensive databases of architectural measurements, photographs, and archival documents. Scholars across continents collaborate through shared platforms, comparing structural details from disparate regions. Patterns emerge that suggest common influences or parallel innovation. Film and literature continue to appropriate castle imagery. Cinematic portrayals emphasize grandeur or mystery. Audiences unfamiliar with specific sites internalize stylized versions that shape broader cultural perception. Reality and representation intertwine subtly. Educational curricula incorporate visits to nearby fortifications. Students sketch floor plans, analyze defensive features, and consider socioeconomic implications. Fieldwork fosters tangible connection to historical study. Restoration workshops train new generations in traditional crafts. Stone cutting, lime mortar preparation, and timber framing techniques are preserved through apprenticeship. Reviving such skills ensures continuity of knowledge necessary for maintenance. Economic revitalization sometimes hinges on heritage tourism. Local businesses, cafes, artisan shops, guided tour services, benefit from visitor traffic. The castle becomes catalyst for regional development. However, balancing access with conservation remains delicate. Excessive foot traffic erodes ancient steps. Humidity from large crowds threatens fragile interiors. Management plans regulate visitor numbers during peak seasons. Accessibility initiatives seek to accommodate diverse audiences. Ramps and lifts are installed where feasible without compromising structural integrity. Interpretive materials are offered in multiple languages and formats. Research into medieval diet expands through isotopic analysis of skeletal remains found within associated burial grounds. Chemical signatures reveal variations in nutrition between social classes. Such findings complicate simplified assumptions about privilege and deprivation. Landscape archaeology examines field patterns visible from aerial photography. Subtle ridges indicate former agricultural systems linked to castle administration. Earthworks beyond visible walls testify to extensive management of surrounding terrain. Interdisciplinary conferences convene historians, architects, engineers, and ecologists. Dialogue across fields enriches understanding of these multifaceted sites. No single discipline captures the entirety of their significance. Public art installations occasionally respond to fortress settings. Contemporary sculptures placed within courtyards provoke reflection on continuity and change. Temporary exhibits invite reinterpretation without permanent alteration. Nighttime projections illuminate facades with historical imagery. Animated sequences depict construction phases or significant events. Technology overlays narrative onto enduring stone, merging past and present visually. Scholars debate authenticity in reconstruction. Should collapsed towers be rebuilt to original height, or left as evocative remnants? Philosophical differences guide divergent approaches across countries. Volunteer programs engage local residents in maintenance efforts. Community members assist with vegetation control or archival cataloging. Participation fosters sense of shared guardianship. Emergency preparedness plans address risks posed by earthquakes, fire, or severe weather. Fire suppression systems are installed discreetly. Structural monitoring devices detect subtle shifts in load-bearing elements. Ethnographic research explores how contemporary communities integrate castles into identity. Wedding ceremonies, cultural festivals, and artistic performances occur within ancient precincts. The structure becomes stage for new memories. Scholarly publications disseminate findings widely. Monographs detail construction sequences, decorative schemes, and socio-economic context. Peer review refines interpretations continuously. Environmental sustainability initiatives examine energy usage within adapted structures. Solar panels may be installed on less visible rooftops. Rainwater harvesting systems support garden irrigation. Innovation aligns with preservation. Cultural diplomacy occasionally utilizes historic fortifications as venues for international meetings. Delegations gather beneath vaulted ceilings that once witnessed feudal councils. Symbolism underscores dialogue across borders. Artists in residence programs invite creators to inhabit select chambers temporarily. Painting, writing, and music inspired by the environment contribute fresh layers of cultural production. Archival discoveries sometimes challenge established narratives. Newly uncovered correspondence alters understanding of alliances or conflicts. Revision becomes integral to historical inquiry. Interactive exhibits allow visitors to simulate architectural planning. Digital interfaces enable manipulation of wall thickness or tower placement, demonstrating practical constraints faced by medieval builders. Sociological studies examine visitor behavior patterns. Path tracking reveals which areas attract most attention. Interpretation strategies adapt accordingly. International tourism introduces diverse perspectives. Visitors from distant continents interpret architecture through varied cultural frameworks. Dialogue between guides and guests enriches collective appreciation. Long-term preservation funding often relies on partnerships between public institutions and private donors. Grant applications articulate significance in terms accessible to contemporary stakeholders. Art restoration within chapels requires specialized expertise. Conservators stabilize flaking pigments using reversible techniques. Ethical guidelines prioritize minimal intervention. Hydrological studies assess impact of changing rainfall patterns on foundations. Drainage systems are upgraded discreetly to prevent erosion. Archival sound recordings capture ambient acoustics within specific chambers. These recordings preserve auditory characteristics for future analysis. Academic theses continue to reinterpret known data. Emerging methodologies, such as 3D scanning, generate detailed models that reveal subtle construction nuances. In certain instances, castle grounds serve as sites for archaeological field schools. Students gain practical experience excavating and documenting finds under supervision. Historical reenactment groups recreate aspects of medieval life. Costumed participants demonstrate crafts, cooking methods, and martial exercises. While stylized, such events stimulate interest in deeper study. Documentation efforts extend to intangible heritage. Traditional songs or local legends associated with the site are recorded to ensure continuity. Policy frameworks evolve to address challenges posed by climate change. Rising temperatures and increased precipitation necessitate adaptive strategies. Thus, the castle persists not merely as relic of distant centuries but as active participant in contemporary cultural, scientific, and civic life. Its stone surfaces bear witness to ongoing reinterpretation. Layers of meaning accumulate alongside layers of masonry. Every generation approaches these walls with new questions, informed by its own concerns and aspirations. In that continuous inquiry lies enduring vitality, a testament not solely to the builders of the past, but to the observers who continue to engage with what remains.